Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mayor's Thursday press conference. Today is Thursday, December 18th, 2008. It's approximately 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Here at the fire station, which is also the command center, the emergency operations center for the ice storm event. And I just want to remind everybody that a state of emergency is still in effect and will remain in effect until further notice. A parking ban is also in effect, especially with inclement weather coming in tomorrow. We're expecting a large amount of snow on Friday. There's also snow expected on Sunday as well. I just want to go over a few things. First is that it is important for residents not to hinder the city's efforts to keep the roadways clear and open, especially for the snow event that is expected tomorrow. This means that there will be means available to residents to dispose of their debris. Do not put your debris in the roadways. Keep the debris in your yard, away from the streets. City crews are busy ensuring that the roadways are safe and will continue to work throughout the weekend. So please help their efforts by keeping debris away from the streets. The city is still operating at full capacity around the clock. As many as 40 National Guardsmen have been and will continue to be deployed at any given time to assist in our shelters and also to help with the road clearing crews. We're letting residents know that they can get information via the city website at ci.fitchburg.ma.us. We're also printing out this map. We have a very large version of this map at the Senior Center that has details about the latest streets that have been reported to us by Unitil and their official word that these are circuits that they have restored. So we're getting our information, making sure that it's from a source that we can verify. But this does not mean that your power will be restored once it returns to the street. You may have storm damage to your residents, and if that is the case, you have to contact an electrician. You also have to contact Unitil to make sure that they can re-energize that line once the work is done by your own electrician. Residents can also find out information on unitil.com. They can call their hotline at 888-301-7700. And again, we're asking people to be patient. There is the latest information we received from Unitil as of a few hours ago is that there's approximately 4,900 homes still being affected. They're telling us that they're still on target of their previous projections of 95% of the primary circuits by sometime later tonight. With the inclement weather starting tomorrow, we want to caution residents to stay off the roadways if it is possible. Again, to keep debris in your yard and not on the roads. We also know that waste management, where accessible, is picking up trash. So if you have, let's say, spoiled goods from your refrigerator and you're looking for places to put that out with your trash during those normal operating days. And if waste management is not picking up your trash on your scheduled date, you can call the Board of Health and we'll log that. That's 978-345-9582, and we call Waste Management to make sure that they go to that location and pick up the trash. Our first priority is the protection of life. We want to make sure that there is a warm and safe place for people to go. Our shelter is going to remain open until further notice. That shelter right now is at the Senior Center, 14 Wallace Avenue, and we're asking for volunteers. Or if you need transportation to the shelter, you can call the Senior Center. You can visit the Senior Center directly. Their number is 978-345-9598. And I just want to go over one question that we've been receiving a lot of questions about, and that's about people who are returning home. They're wondering what to do with the food in the refrigerator. After 24 hours with no power to run your refrigerator, the cold naturally starts to dissipate from your food and your freezer compartments. This does not mean that your food has gone bad, and we're talking about just a 24-hour period. However, you must make sure that if it doesn't smell right or things look to be melting in the freezer or the milk container feels warm or smells just a little when opened, then chances are that you should not eat it or drink it and throw it out. Certainly for those who have been without power for multiple days, please err on the side of caution throughout the food. But of course, you, in the end, are the best judge of whether your food is safe or not. I'm going to see if our representative can say a few words. I know that he's been extremely busy and extremely helpful during this entire process.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, I just want to once again thank the volunteers, certainly the fire department, police department, and public works. Great work that they're doing. They've been working around the clock. And not to forget also the power company folks who are out there doing their jobs as well. We appreciate their efforts. The state is well aware of our situation in the city of Fitchburg, including Congressman Olver. Certainly, I just received a call today from Senator Kerry's office, and we've been in touch, both Senator-elect Flanagan and myself, with Senator Kennedy and Kerry's office, as well as Congressman Olver. And they've assured us that we will be provided with the resources that we need following the crisis. And FEMA has also been notified. We've gotten some information on what we're going to need in terms of assessing how much damage and what that cost associated with that damage is going to be. So we're in good shape right now, and we'll be in better shape once everyone is back in their homes and has power. But as the mayor mentioned, please stay safe, and also please don't hamper any of the work that we're trying to do. Keep any brush that you've got in your yard, if you would. And thank you.
Thank you. And just to be preemptive, as of right now, there is no word yet as to whether schools will be open next Monday or Tuesday. So right now, we've only closed schools through the end of this week. Any questions?
I have a question, Mayor. We received a different report from someone that called Unitil today saying it would now take until Sunday for the primary lines to be restored. So I'm just kind of wondering when they told you that it would still be done by the end of the day today.
Okay. They're still telling us that by this evening, the primary lines in Fitchburg will be restored. I'm not going to quote it exactly, but I do know that they have different dates for different towns. So there are projections. They have projections on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of other towns that are in their system.
How well has Unitil been over the last week in meeting their goals or projections on a daily basis?
Well,
when they tell you, 95% by the end of the day, when they have said something like this previously, have they reached those goals on a regular basis?
Well, this is actually the first time that they've made such a projection like that.
Well, I know on Sunday they said they were going to cut it in half, and they fell well short of that. Has that been happening throughout, or?
The most information that we get is their periodic updates about how many homes they have energized, about how many streets they have energized, so we can put those to a map. In terms of projections like that, they're not giving those to us on a regular basis. I think when they put out those two pieces of information, they've put it out to everybody. I think we can all be judges of that. I think in any situation, it is hard to predict, and there's a lot of things that are variables. If we can get information out to individuals, such as for example, if there's damage to their homes, we were trying to get that information out early. We saw that on the Unitil website. We wanted to get that information out early to people. Because if they needed days to secure an electrician, we wanted to make sure there was nothing that the homeowner was doing to hinder them getting their electric service.
It seems like there's a growing word that there are just some individuals with a line down, or that's their individual house doesn't have a line from the pole to their house. Do you guys have any idea how many people because it seems like they're going to be last after all the kind of major stuff gets done? Then Unitil is going to go house to house. Is there any indication of how many people that is who, if their whole street might have power, or, most of the street has power, but they don't because of that one line?
Yeah. Well, I don't have any indication of how many that is. I think that's a house-by-house basis. And I can give my own personal example. I know that my electric service actually feeds the back of my house. It's actually not visible from the street. Mine was detached from my house. So I actually don't know if I think that Unitil will know about that when I call them and log that in, which was information that we're trying to get out to other people, is that they need to know, and I needed to call my own electrician.
Okay. So when Unitil says there are 5,212 customers without power, does that include those individual houses, or is that kind of that general block or street figure?
Again, I really can't, I can only repeat what Unitil has told to me. I can't give you accurate information, but their primary, they've been doing things based on first the big transmissions and sub-transmissions, and then they're working on primaries, and then they're working on secondaries and those individual home-by-homes. And my understanding of how the circuits work is that the primaries, the secondaries, those are connected to circuits. So when they're telling us that they're energizing a circuit, if there's, let's say, 200 homes on that circuit, it doesn't mean that 200 homes are lit, because maybe 10 of them had damage of some sort.
I guess that's why I asked, that number that they're giving on a daily basis, is that actual dark customers, or is that dark customers in areas that are dark?
Again, I hate to speculate, but my presumptions, the way that I'm interpreting, is that it's the primary feeding those circuits to those homes. So even though 100% of the primaries may be up, and that's why they're saying 95%, because even if 100% of their primary circuits are up, it doesn't mean that 100% of people are going to have
There's been some
energy.
I don't know if they're rumors or reports. There's been some talk of people without power getting frustrated, and there's been some yelling, and maybe even a little bit more at the Unitil office and with Unitil crews out on the street. Have you heard any of? Is that happening that you're aware of? This might be a question for the chief even.
Yeah, I've heard so many different rumors, and there are a lot of rumors out there. I think that the best we can ask people to do is to be patient wherever possible, and that the information that we give out of this office, this is why I don't like to speculate. We want to make sure it's the information that people need to know. For example, the number that they need to call, that at 888-301-7700 number. And again, what we've been told by Unitil is that that number is the number that you call, even though it's busy. I think people need to be patient with that, in order to log your home if there's an individual service problem, so that it's connected to their work order system. And if the weatherhead is attached from their home, the only person that is responsible for that is the homeowner. So we want to make sure that those pieces of information get out there. In terms of the number of crews, what circuit they're working on, I think that's always going to be fluid. We know that with our own crews, if we have a regular route, if there's an emergency, we have to divert to that emergency. If there's because we're trying to look at prevention of loss of life first and foremost.
So is that a yes or a no on aggressive behavior with Unitil and its crews?
A lot of rumors.
But
until I
nothing-
see
nothing that you know
police
for
reports,
sure.
then
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, one more quick thing. My understanding is that the high school still doesn't have power, and that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get to that point. If there's no power at the high school by Monday, but everything else is ready to go, would you open the other schools and keep the high school closed, or is it all for one and one for all on the schools?
That decision is going to be made by the superintendent, and we will let people know as soon as possible.
Okay. Is there an issue at this point with school buses getting around town?
There are still a few key areas that the DPW needs to clear the roadways.
Okay.
And that's where the National Guard has been really instrumental.
And would you open schools without bus service?
There will be bus service.
Okay, so you would.
If there is school.
Okay, so you would only open schools if there was bus service?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Right now, the bus service for a student has actually been very helpful in this process. They've been providing a lot of our transportation for us.
Do you know which areas of the city still have blocked roads that you're working on?
There are a few streets, actually they're scattered throughout the city. Our process has been looking at the primary roads and the secondary roads, and then some of the neighborhood roads. So we have a very similar process in which we are looking towards serving the maximum number of people first. So it's pretty much scattered throughout the city. We've also had challenges in which we have cleared roadways, and we found that they've become blocked again. With any slight winds, With the melting, there was snapback of trees, so we may have cleared roadways, and if we get reports that they're blocked again, then we do send crews back, depending on if it's a priority road or not. The second challenge we've had is individuals who are putting debris in the roadways. That's the first thing I mentioned. That's hindering everything that we're doing. That's slowing down any crew that is out there working right now. So that's why we're asking residents, please, stay out of the roads. Please keep your debris out of the roads. We need to make sure that the roadways are safe and clear especially for tomorrow's snowstorm.
What about residents? I mean, we're almost a week into this. It'll be a week tomorrow. Some residents haven't seen any truck, DPW truck, anything on their street. What can you say to them
Well,
a week later?
It depends on where they are. Again, primary roads, secondary roads, and the tertiary roads. If we're talking about people who are on some of the tertiary roads, then they should be seeing a DPW truck soon.
When? Because, I mean, I remember you saying that on Monday, and it's been a few days, so I'm sure those people are getting kind of anxious, especially
Yeah.
with snow tomorrow.
Well, that's been a major issue, which is we've had these series of snowstorms. And we've also had to divert crews away from the steady progress of road clearance because of emergency situations. If there was a place that was safe and then with snapback of wires, if that wire's live, if there's a tree that's fallen in the middle of the roadway, again, we have to divert crews away towards that. And that's been one of the biggest challenges is that we could take a look at all the roadways and say that if we sent the crews out and just cleared all the roadways, it would be done by this date. But that would mean that we aren't addressing emergency or unexpected situations, and we always need to be prepared for that.
Is the city ready for the snow tomorrow?
Yes, yeah, that is the easy stuff, relatively speaking. That stuff we know how to do. We have a lot of contractors that we contract and procure every year, and we're ready to go. That's something that we're used to here in the city.
But will roads be plowed if they're still covered with debris and down wires and whatnot?
And that's why we're working very diligently, and that's why one of the things that we're finding today is we're being hampered by individuals who are putting their debris in the road. So the same individuals who are asking us to work faster have also been hindering this process. So we need to make sure that we're all working together.
Have you seen a lot of cases where people put stuff in the streets?
We've had significant amount of reports today, and it's enough that we felt the need to put out a public announcement to let people know that it's not helping our efforts.
So what should people do if, with their brush, would the city be coming around to pick it up at some point, or?
Yeah, there will be means available. There will be different mechanisms to dispose of your debris. For example, waste management, the landfill is open during their normal hours, and debris can be dropped off there. We're encouraging people to stay off the roadways tomorrow, though, if necessary. So between now and through the snowstorm, the best thing to do is to stack it neatly in your yard, and that's not on the roadways.
Would the city eventually come around and pick that up?
We'll have different means available. We'll have different either drop-off points and/or pickup, and that schedule we'll put out there as soon as that's established. But right now, again, we cannot focus on debris that is in people's yards if the roadways aren't clear. That is our first and foremost, our biggest public safety issue. If there is an issue about debris, for example, in yards that are that have downed the power line, those are emergency situations, and there is mechanisms in place for people to call and contact. But we are still in the middle of the crisis, and we are still in the middle of making sure that we keep all residents of the city safe and warm. That includes both in their homes, on the streets, and in our shelters. And we are asking people to not hinder those efforts.
Sorry, could you just review what the status of power outages is now in the city and where you expect it to be tonight?
I can't represent that. That's something that Unitil can better answer. And again, the same information that you're getting is the same information that we're getting. which is that they have projections that they're hoping to meet by the end of the night. And until we get reports from them about what streets have been energized, we're doing our best to keep the public informed. So we receive the information from Unitil, we update our maps, and we put out those maps on the website and at the senior center.
Where is the representative from Unitil? Because on here you mentioned that there would be a representative here.
Yeah, I don't know.
They said they would be here though, and
You said earlier you still expect 95% of primary circuits to be on by later tonight. That's what you've gotten from Unitil?
That's what we received from Unitil.
So what does that mean, primary circuits, 95% of primary circuits?
Primary circuits, the exact definition, again, these are Unitil terms, but my understanding is that those are most of the circuits that service the streets, not the individual connections, people's homes, not the major sub-transmission lines. But I would say if you want exact definitions of different circuits, you're welcome to contact Unitil. We're not so much concerned about definitions here. We want to see results. And that's why when we get information that results have happened, we put it out there on the street. And that's also why we have contracted every possible resources we can on the city side, whether it's National Guard, or Red Cross, or Mass Highway crews. And that's why we're doing everything possible to make sure that residents get the information that they need.
So any idea on when you expect everyone to have their power back by?
I have no expectations at this point in time beyond what is reported by Unitil and also what we're seeing on the streets.
How many folks were at the shelter last night or this morning? Do you have a head count?
There was 138 at the shelters last night, and we usually get better figures because it's about dinner time right now, so a lot of people come in just for the food. So we usually get a better idea in about an hour or so about how many people are staying for the night at the shelters.
And it's just at the senior center still at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor, people have kind of joked about subcontracting work out to National Grid or other power companies because they're frustrated with Unitil. In all honesty, is that something the city could do? Have you guys discussed that?
We do not own the power lines, the transmission lines, the poles. We don't own the substations. We don't own any of that. We have no legal or lawful right to touch those, and nor would I expect any existing company to touch other people's lines without going through whatever mutual aid agreements that they've established.
Some state legislators have called for public hearings to be held after this crisis is over. Could you talk about, do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that should be happening?
Yeah, in fact, that's a conversation I had very early on with my fellow elected officials that this is something that was needed. I wanted to make sure that we put it on their radar screens. It actually seemed like we were all already thinking the same thing. So what we are going to do is coordinate our efforts to figure out what is the best means, mechanisms, who needs to be at the table, who needs to get involved, who the audience is going to be. This is an effort that's happening not just locally, but state and federally. So we want to make sure that the right people are involved in this process. But we are not and will not divert any of our attention and resources away from the protection of life. That type of stuff we're going to be talking about for quite some time.
What would you hope to get out of hearings if they do occur?
I would say, if I could sum it up in one word, answers to questions, not just our own questions, but other questions that other people may have. In terms of, and we're hoping that this is not an event that occurs regularly, but it's always a time to reflect. It's always a time to see if there are resources that become available. Oftentimes resources become available like through state or federal means when the need is identified. If that's a possibility, for example, to acquire more personnel, more equipment, different types of technologies, different systems, that would be a time that we would look at going after those. And we're also hoping that we, from the local level, who are here on the ground, who see what is happening, who feel most the frustrations, and a lot of your city personnel, people at City Hall, your police, your fire, your DPW crews, they are in the exact same boat. They don't have power. Some people have trees to their roofs. There are different things that are happening in different circumstances, and those types of stories, those will all come out in the public hearing. And I think that those types of things need to be heard by state officials, by federal officials. We've been lucky enough to have the governor. He came out and visited earlier this week. Of course, we also had representation from the state legislature come out as well. So we have people who have come here, seen the situation, and I think it's made a difference to see it and not just hear what's happening.
Any idea at this point of if things could have been done better, or what could have been done better to help alleviate the situation sooner?
Well, certainly we are not sitting in what is happening in other agencies, so we cannot even begin to comment on them because that time for reflection is not now. Our push is for more resources and more resources now, and that has been our consistent message. Certainly with more resources, maybe things that could have been done differently, but I certainly know that in terms of our local crew, I believe we may have been one of the first at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning to declare a state of emergency. We realized very early on that the circumstances were serious. We formed the EOC right away. The team assembled. There wasn't an issue with that. So here on the local level, I know that we've been very responsive. I think the challenge has been that no local individual, agency, person, or city or town has enough resources within that town to deal with a disaster of this magnitude. And the dissemination of those additional resources that have been needed, that's been quite a complicated process. It's too early to assess, with crews from Tennessee, Ohio, Michigan. We have medical personnel coming from the South Shore, many hours away. Again, it's hard to assess, could they have gotten here earlier? Who knows? But we know that we certainly mobilized and requested all those things right away.
So would you be able to give an assessment of how Unitil has responded to this whole situation?
It's hard to respond right now. It's, same answer as I just gave, which is I'm not sitting in their boardrooms, I'm not sitting at their desks, I'm not making decisions for them. We have a very singular purpose, which is we want the most resources here as quickly as possible. We have continued to put a lot of both political and public pressure to get those resources. A lot of phone calls behind the scenes, lot of contacting, and once we get those resources, and when we get those resources, a lot of expertise is in that room to make sure that every resource is utilized. Because you could have more, but if they're not deployed effectively or efficiently, then you're not getting towards your goal. And that's been one thing that we've been very lucky to have, which is some very experienced people who have been working in our command center.
What do you mean by resources at this point? I mean, you've used that word a number of times,
Yeah,
Stephanie. What resources could be available right now, today, that could walk through the door or come through the door that you're looking for?
There's 3 areas that I'd like to break this up into: restoration of power, clearance of roadways, and providing those warm and safe places like the shelters. So in terms of the restoration of power, we have asked Unitil, can we do more? What can we do? And I know that our crews have been 100% responsive. So if our crews need to help clear an area because there's that needs to be done in order to facilitate the restoration of power, we have diverted our crews to do so. So whatever the power company is looking for, and we ask and we check in, we have done according to them. In terms of the clearance of roadways, we knew that we didn't have enough DPW crews, especially if they're going to be working around the clock. And that's where we were able to get the National Guard. We were able to get Mass Highway Resources. And then for our sheltering purposes, we've had the Red Cross, and we've had National Guardsmen help in terms of security, administration, registration. Agencies like MOC have provided us daily with 200 meals. So we have a lot of help coming in. I think one of the challenges is that there might have been a possibility that we would have gotten more resources for road clearance, and I can only talk for the city in terms of road clearance, if there hadn't been a snow event on Wednesday. I think a lot of state crews that would have been available to help us clear our roads had to be diverted towards clearing state roads because of the snow. And that is going to be an issue tomorrow as well. Whenever you have snow, you might be diverting crews away from the critical road clearance. In our case, because we have different snow plow contractors than the road clearance contractors, we're not going to see too much of an issue there.
For people who still don't have power, for people who didn't have power, for a while, they point to Unitil and say Unitil has stunk responding to this. Are they right or wrong?
I really am not going to waste my time putting qualifying words on that, because if there's one message coming from me, give us more help. That is really the only thing that I'm going to say. Everything else, it doesn't matter what our emotions are in times like this from the command staff. I would hope that the citizens would appreciate.
I think there's a difference between an emotion and an assessment, though. I mean, to say they stink is emotional, but to say
Our assessment is that we need more crews here. And everything that we have done is to try and get more crews here when we can. If there's anything that we can do, again, we're not the power company, and we can't touch their lines, but anything that we can do in terms of getting our road clearance crews to clear the way for the power company, to be responsive if they have an emergency, those are the things that we have been focusing on. And also, trust me, we have let a lot of people know from just about every level of government, actually every level of government, know that we need more. And everybody understands what we need when we say we need more crews working here. Those crews are the crews for power restoration, and again, that's what we really need to focus on.
So again, 4,900 people is the last word that you heard of without power?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know when that was as of?
As of 2 o'clock today.
Okay.
So you're talking about hearings and the after the fact and reflection. Any idea when, maybe that's for you, Mr. Di Natale, when a hearing would happen?
Yeah, we're still very, very much in just the discussion phase of that, certainly with the delegation. There will be a great deal of information that has to be gathered first before we get into a process where they'll be examining what happened. And that's what we want to look at, how things were done well and how things were done not so well. And
It's going to have to be done separately.
and again, that's going to take some time, but we're certainly committed to doing that. The delegation is, and as far up as the Speaker of the House is also on board with that. He would like to see that as well, along with Department of Public Utilities, the Attorney General's office. It's just going to be a smorgasbord of print for you folks. You're going to love it.
Would you want to have those hearings in Boston or here?
We'd like to have both, certainly here, because I think the people, well, speaking for the city of Fitchburg, the people of Fitchburg, I think, are going to want to be heard, and we want to provide them with that forum.
Would other non-Unitil communities probably want in on this?
That's certainly a possibility. That's up to the legislative people from those areas.
You haven't talked to any of those folks?
No, but I think most of the delegation I know on the House side in this area is certainly very much interested in a hearing process.
What you're hearing from your constituents, is that echoed in
Well,
other?
you know, as the mayor mentioned, I think I made it quite clear how I feel about the situation. I'm going to reserve further comment because we've got a job to try and get done, and that's get people back in their houses, so I don't want to distract from that, so I'll reserve comment.
We just received word that the representative from Unitil should be here shortly, I think a few minutes ago. Ken delivered a message that she'll be here in 10 minutes. Not sure exactly when that means, but if you want to conclude this and wait, that would be fine. We can get you water if you'd like. Cookie?
Electricity?
Electricity. That's why we're waiting until the representative comes. All right, welcome back from our brief intermission. Again, my name is Lisa Wong, Mayor of the City of Fitchburg, and I'd like to bring up Cindy Carroll, who is a representative from Unitil. She has been assisting in providing updates. Actually, she's been a key person in keeping us informed. Cindy?
Thank you. I'll give a brief overview of where I think we are right now, and then, entertain questions that you might have. Right now, our primary goal is the restoration still of primary circuits, and we are in the process of doing that right now. Our hope was to have all of the primary circuits energized by the end of today, which into the evening hours tonight. It is still our goal to do that. However, some of the damage on the primary circuits that we're working on right now is extensive and is taking a little longer than we hoped. So whether or not we'll be able to meet that goal, we really can't determine at this time, but we are still pushing hard toward having all of those primary circuits energized by the end of the evening hours here today on Thursday. If we achieve that goal, that should energize 90 to 95% of the people in the city of Fitchburg, our customers here in the city of Fitchburg. That doesn't account for individual situations where people's services from the circuits to their homes have been, pulled off the house or damaged in some substantive way, such that when the circuit comes back and the circuit is energized, their home, their individual service won't be energized, excuse me. So we'll have to go back and deal with those individual issues at another time once the primary circuits are energized. We had today and have now 27 line crews working in the city of Fitchburg, along with 7 tree crews who are helping to clear debris and free lines of whatever debris remains so that the work on the system can be done. But the damage on the primary circuits is extensive. So, be happy to answer
I
questions.
think the mayor said earlier there's 4,900 people in the city, 4,900 customers who don't have
Yes,
power.
right now, that's where we are,
Okay.
roughly about 4,900.
Now, does that number include those individuals that you talked about where the circuit might be working but the line isn't attached there?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
So the number could be a little higher than that.
Do you have any idea how many of those individual people don't have?
We can estimate it. It could be 1,000 people. It could be a little more, it could be a little less.
What's that based on?
Based on customers who have called us and told us, there's a problem with my individual line. It's based on our survey work. So we're collecting information, both our people in the field are collecting that information, customers calling us. I would urge customers who have a service problem, who have not already reported it, because obviously our intake center for calls has been inundated with calls. So if you've already reported your service line has a problem, we have recorded it, there has been a work order generated, and those are in the queue to be fixed. But if you haven't, please let us know. Please call the customer service center.
When do you expect you guys to be doing that kind of door-to-door?
As soon as the primary circuits are energized, we will devote those crews that are available to us to solving those individual problems as quickly as possible.
Any idea when you can be done and it'll be just like
Fully restored. We're going to work at this 24 hours a day from now until every single customer is restored. It is very difficult, considering the volume of work that we have to do, to pinpoint it to a day or an hour. We can give estimates. We're hoping to have everybody restored, you know, by the end of the weekend would be a good goal. But obviously, it's an estimate until we start to do the work, as we did today, and really get into what the damage is on each of these individual circuits and these individual circumstances. It's really difficult to estimate.
You mentioned there were 27 crews in the city today. How many were there, say, on Sunday or Monday?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
I don't know how many crews were in the field on Sunday.
Has the presence
Here it is.
increased during the course of the week?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Is this the most you've
Yeah,
had?
it increased today.
Okay.
Yeah, we had
So this is
5 new
higher.
crews come down from today.
Okay.
5 crews were released from other areas that came down to work here in Fitchburg today.
So right now, this is the most you've had?
This is the
Working.
most we've had deployed.
Okay.
Yep. Overall, system-wide, I don't know that it's the most we've ever had deployed here in the city of Fitchburg, but in the our service territory here in Massachusetts, this is the most we've had deployed.
Okay. During this crisis, or?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, I'll
Maybe
be
ever.
speculating, but probably ever.
Yeah.
When you talk about the primary circuits, can you talk about what a primary circuit is?
Primary circuits are those circuits that carry power from the substations throughout the city and throughout the neighborhoods. And then there are secondary circuits, of course, that tap off those primary circuits to serve smaller individual neighborhoods. But the primary circuits are those circuits that are the main feed of power from substations throughout the community.
Are you guys working on the secondary circuits right now?
Not as a focus area. There may be instances where we need to deploy a crew to a secondary circuit because of a safety or health issue, but not as a primary focus, no.
Any idea on how many customers you expect would still not have power by the end of tonight or tomorrow?
We don't have an estimate on that. Like I said, the goal is to have those primary circuits energized, and we're still working hard toward that goal.
And if those are energized, then any idea on how many customers you expect would still be without power?
We're estimating that it would be less than 10% of our system, probably more like 5%. About 95% of those customers are served by primary circuits, but again, we don't know how many of those customers have individual small problems that won't be restored by bringing up the primary circuit. So there has to be some room in there for those people, so between 10 and 5%.
Can I ask about your progress in the other towns you serve in this area? Mashpee and Lunenburg?
I don't have specific information about progress in those towns. I've been focused here in the city of Fitchburg, but we have had crews deployed. We have 75 crews deployed in our Massachusetts service territory. Those are line crews. I don't have information about tree crews and how many might be deployed. But whatever's not deployed here in Fitchburg, obviously, is deployed in those other service territories.
Some state politicians have said that Unitil could have done a better job communicating in the immediate aftermath of this. Can you talk a little bit about your communication efforts and what you guys did do?
Our focus immediately was on mitigating the effects of the storm. So everybody who was deployed was focused on trying to restore the damage that was being done, or mitigate damage that was being done if we could. And also, when the storm is first started like that, we have a lot of safety concerns in terms of health and safety of the population because of live energized wires that could be coming down as a result of broken poles and branches bringing wires down. So we were focused there initially, and so we weren't necessarily focused on providing information. I guess that's probably the best answer I can give you. We may not have had very much information to communicate very early on. The storm happened at night. It was dark. You know, we didn't have people out really trying to do assessments until the daylight hours. We had people out that night responding as quickly as we could to the damage that was being done, trying to mitigate the effects, make sure people were safe. So I think it's more, you know, I'm not sure we had a lot of information to share right away.
Some people were also saying that auxiliary crews could have come in here faster. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how you got it? Could it have been speeded up any faster?
I don't think so. We began immediately, as soon as we began to understand just how devastating this storm was going to be, we started asking for help. We asked for help immediately. The region has been affected by this storm, so the help that could have gotten here very quickly wasn't available to us. All of those other companies in the region were deploying their crews to their problem areas, and so we had to ask for crews that were, 14 hours away, 12 hours away, in some cases more. So we asked for the help as soon as we understood the impact, and those crews from Tennessee and Pennsylvania and Ohio got on the road as fast as they could, and came to the call. And by the way, are doing a tremendous job for us here.
So when did you first put out the calls for help?
I do not have the information about when exactly the calls started, but I can get you that information if that's important to you.
And then someone else had mentioned to me that maybe a better job could have been done to clear branches and trees from the power line so that if those branches or trees do get knocked down, that they wouldn't knock down a power line. Do you guys do that?
We have a routine, you're talking about tree trimming?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Every year, we have a tree trimming schedule. We identify areas. It's a rotation schedule, so as growth happens, we go back and clear areas again. We clear areas as best we can, and we have a regular schedule for doing that. Our crews come back to us on a regular basis and say, there's a area over here that really could use some trimming, and we'll do that ad hoc. So we have a basic schedule for trimming that's a rotational schedule, but then if we identify areas that seem to be in need, we go back and we respond to those areas specifically as well.
Has that schedule changed? I've heard rumblings that it's not as aggressive a schedule as it used to be. That
I have no information that says that our schedule has changed in that way.
State legislator, was here a little bit earlier, and the House Speaker was here earlier this week, and they both talked about having hearings with, the Department of Public Utilities, the AG's office. Do you think that's a good idea?
I can't comment on whether or not, I think if they feel like they need to have hearings, then I guess that's their prerogative, certainly, to do that. I think, whatever questions they have, we welcome their questions, and we will answer them as fully and as truthfully as we can. We have done our very best to respond to an extraordinary circumstance. I don't think we have done anything differently than any other utility. I think we've all responded as best we can, brought the forces to bear. Our crews have worked incredibly hard to restore power to as many people as quickly as possible as they can. And we think they've done a great job, so we'll welcome those questions when they come.
So again, you hope to have only 5 to 10% of the primary circuits not working by the end of tonight. Is your goal still?
Our goal is to have the primary circuits, all of them, energized by the end of tonight. If we have encountered some circuits to be more difficult than we anticipated, so it's hard for me to judge right now whether or not that's going to slip, but there is a possibility that they may slip into tomorrow.
And then full power restoration, you estimate, maybe by the end of the weekend?
We're hopeful that we can get to all those individual circumstances over the next couple of days following restoration of the primary circuits.
How does the inclement weather affect that end of the operation?
We will continue to work as best we can, regardless of the weather. But I guess there's no question that, depending upon the severity of that weather that comes into us, that could hamper things, as might be expected. So that could delay things, there's no question. But we will continue to work as best we can, regardless of the weather.
If we were interested in getting other towns, do you know who would have that information or how we could get it?
I would refer you to George Gantz,
Okay.
who's pretty much our Chief Information Officer.